What's up, Will? Scones. Today we're making scones. According to the internet, the first written records of scones date back to the 16th century when Scottish cooks would make them for breakfast. Then something England and afternoon tea. And since it's the afternoon and early evening, and since I know how to make tea, we're making scones for our afternoon tea. The first thing you want to do when you make scones is to mix your dry stuff. So your dry stuff for today is flour. I'm using all-purpose flour. You can use other types of flour, but this is the way that it will turn out the best because this is my recipe and I only do good things. Then you want some sugar, just normal white sugar. You want baking powder and you want some baking soda. You also want some salt. You can just take you want 2 tiny wooden spoons worth of salt, which is a great unit of measurement. You're welcome, America. Now when we have everything in the bucket, now in the bowl, all the dry stuff, just grab a fork and give it a quick mix to just combine all the dry stuff. Put your fork back in and now let's get started with the wet stuff, I guess, if cold butter is considered wet. As for the wet stuff, we want 75 grams of Swedish butter. If you're not in Sweden and you can't get a hold of Swedish butter, I guess that's fine. But if you want to make it properly, you want Swedish butter. Now you might be like, oh, it's English. Well, if the Englishmen could get a hold of Swedish butter, I'm pretty sure they would. So just cut the butter up into cubes and then we're gonna put them into the flour. You might need to mix or to just swirl it around a little bit with your fork just to cover the butter with flour so that the pieces of butter don't stick to each other. Do this, and since I didn't tell you before, here's a surprise. Before we do this, we go and preheat our oven, and if you have one of these ovens with the hot air, which I do, you want to go and preheat your oven to about 210 degrees Celsius. If you don't and you only have the over-under heat, you know which one I mean, you want to put it to 220 degrees Celsius, which is about 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 4.5 football fields. Now when you have all the butter in here, you want to pinch the butter into the flour to make tiny little, you pinch it in a way so that you can, you break the butter up into smaller pieces. You don't want to make it into too small pieces though. So before when I made scones, I usually did it in a food processor, and that made the butter into very, very fine pieces so that the whole thing became like wet sand. Something that I've noticed since I started doing this way instead is that when you have the bigger pieces of butter, you get a flakier scone it rises better and it becomes flakier, so it's more tasty. So there are 2 things that separate these scones from the normal Swedish version of scones, and the first one is that we pinch the butter into the flour. And we kind of knead it into the flour a little bit. The second one is, well, I'm gonna show you that later. All right, so now the butter is in smaller pieces. We still have some larger pieces, but most of the butter is in small pieces, which is exactly what we want, because here's a big butter piece, and then you have, well, smaller pieces as well that I can't really show you because they're too small. But we're gonna start out here, and now I am going to put this aside just for a few minutes while we get a baking tray and some paper stuff. Then we're gonna finish the dough. Okay, so with your baking tray, with the baking paper, this on there, you put this aside for a little bit, like so, and you bring back your beautiful flour butter mixture. And into this mixture, we are going to add 2 deciliters of normal yogurt. And we want the natural one without any flavors or any sugar or any other bad stuff, because this is gonna provide the moisture and also a little bit of tartness, and also help the baking soda do the baking soda stuff. Help it rise because of the natural sourness of the acidity, thank you, the natural acidity of the yogurt.
Also, technically it doesn't help it to rise, it helps it to have a chemical reaction so that the dough can rise. Technically.
If you could hear what my girlfriend said, good for you. If not, I'm not gonna repeat it. Because for once, instead of me being, well, actually, she did the, well, actually. Give this a mix. You can just stir it with your fork until you get like a shaggy dough. And when you do have your shaggy dough like this, just put a little bit of flour on your bench top. And pour out your dough. There's a bench scraper somewhere. I think I saw it. Hello. Cool. And then just work this into a cohesive dough lump. And I can feel that this is a little bit too wet, because you don't want it to stick to your fingers too much. It can stick a little bit, but you don't want it to stick too much. So, what you want to do is just add a little bit more flour. I'm gonna add some on top and add some on the bottom when you make scones like these. Cool, now my dough has come together. I have pressed it out to about 1 centimeter. So now we're gonna do the second thing that's not super common for when Swedish people make scones, is that you take one of these little ring molds and you press your scones out with a ring mold. This makes it so that when you cut them out like this, you have the cut edges, and that helps it to rise, because for some reason that is different than just shaping them into the same shape. I'm gonna make the last one. I'm gonna shape the last one just to show you the difference. So just cut them out. This makes about 9 scones usually. Today it makes 10, it seems like. All right, so the last one, we're gonna shape it into a hockey puck looking thing to make it look like the other scones. So if we shape it into be round like this and press it out. If you look at this, it's similar, but it doesn't have the same cut edges. So now we're going to put these in the oven for about 8 to 10 minutes. And yeah, when they're done, I'll take them out, obviously. They're done. All right, so here's the difference between the two scones. This is the scone that I cut. As you can see, it's very, very kind of flaky, and you can separate it like into two. And you can separate this into two halves just by grabbing it and go like this. Now you have a perfect scone that you can eat with whatever you want to eat it with. This one, on the other hand, since I shaped it instead of cutting it, it doesn't get these flaky edges, so you can't separate it like this. So what you had to do with one of these, which is more like a little, like a roll, I think they're called in at least the US, like a dinner roll, is that you have to cut these open. It's just not very scony. So I'm not gonna do that. I'm leaving all of these scones for my girlfriend and her sister so that they can have breakfast tomorrow. I'm just nice like that. So we're gonna take some of this butter. It's butter mixed with olive oil, like baking butter. And this is the best way to eat butter when you have it on scones or like sandwiches. So if we're gonna try these and eat a little bit. Also, the dog is outside having a pee. But yeah, these scones are amazing. This recipe is the best recipe for scones. And if you don't agree with me, you are wrong. I'm a god, and you have to try these, and you do it the same way I did. You're gonna think that these are the best types of scone as well. Anyways, yeah, so eat this. Baking is easy. Subscribe, thumbs up, like the video, leave a comment, show it to someone. Yeah, I'm hungry. I'm gonna eat this, and I'll see you next time, Will. I don't need this. All right, bye-bye.